Hi, good evening, everyone. It's nice to have you here. Thank you for joining my YouTube live today. We have a special guest today, and we're going to be talking about career. Oh, I've got to mute this. Thank you for joining my YouTube live today. Um, we have a there you go. Okay, so I'm going to be bringing on the special guest. I'm going to let him introduce himself to everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. Can you let me know where you're joining us from and what year group your child is in the comment section? Thank you all so much for joining. So I'm going to let our special guest in now. I'm going to let our special guest in. Hi, Ryan.
Are you okay?
I'm very well. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Loud and clear, I can hear you too. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll let you introduce yourself to those who are watching. People are watching on our YouTube channel right now. So I'll let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So first and foremost, I'm a property developer based in Manchester, UK. That's my primary job. Um, in addition to that, I also work with schools and colleges and people such as yourself to help empower children and students to follow a career that they are passionate about, as opposed to the traditional career routes that kind of students get told to go down. I was, and that kind of comes from my upbringing as well. I was one of the children that didn't necessarily fit in the academic box. I was never a bad kid. I was never a great kid. I was always just kind of in the middle. And I didn't want to go on to further education. I wanted to go down the route of property development when I was 14, and my careers advisor laughed at me for suggesting such a thing, suggesting that this 14-year-old knows what they want to do. She tried to get me to go to university, which I didn't want to do. And then I spent 14 years in a corporate job. I worked my way up from like a labourer. And then by the time I left, I delivered the UK's largest automated picking solution for one of the UK's largest fashion brands.
Wow.
Um, yeah, then the pandemic hit, and I just decided that I was really unhappy with where I was. Unfortunately, I had a good network around me that encouraged me to follow my passion. So, yeah, COVID, it was awful for a lot of people. I can honestly say it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. Thank you for introducing yourself. It's nice to have you here today. So, a lot of people who are going to be watching tonight are going to be parents. I'm sure they're going to bring on some of their kids along, especially maybe they're teenagers or kids from 12-year-olds. So let's start from how your journey started. So, when did you know? I know you said to your teacher at 14 years of age what you wanted to do and you wanted to go into the property business, but when should a child have clarity? When should they know what sort of career they want to follow?
It's a really good question. And I guess the honest answer is each person is different, each student is different. Some people are really fortunate to know what they want to do from a really young age. I mean, even myself, and I imagine a lot of the parents on here will have children that are saying they want to be footballers or they want to be dancers. And the reason for that is because that's what they're passionate about. When they're 4 and 5 and 10, they're passionate about a subject matter, and that's what they want to be when they grow up. I wanted to be an ice cream man when I was 5 or 6, but your passions in life change, and that's okay. I think there's a ridiculous statistic that something like I can't remember it exactly, so don't quote me, but it's something like 40% of all adults change career at some point in their life. And I don't know whether it's 40%, but it's a really high statistic. It's something that you wouldn't consider. And
Mm,
I guess people say to me, what if I'm not fortunate enough, or my student or my child isn't fortunate enough to have a passion?
mhm.
And the thing I'd say to that is that's because they haven't done it yet and they're not trying enough things. I'm a huge advocate of trying new things very often, and I'm a huge advocate of failing things very fast. Try things and fail at things. In school, you get taught, and my parents as well taught me that failure was a really bad thing. And then when you get older, you realize that failure is actually an incredible thing because it's not definitive. It
Mm,
just means that you haven't got to where you want to be yet. And failure is part of the success, not definitive of the success. So I'd say just keep trying things, keep trying new things. I wish I would have done things like piano when I was younger. Just try things, and eventually you'll find something that you're super passionate about, or the children will find something they're super passionate about, and lean into that. When you see one of your children enjoying something, lean into it, talk to them, encourage them. What did you enjoy about that? Because there might be something that's even complementary to that your child might enjoy that they don't even know exists.
mm,
And I'll use an example from my own childhood. When I was growing up, I was always quite I was a bit of an attention seeker in a nice way. I always liked to be the center of attention with the family. I always liked to sing, and I always liked to dance. Um, and looking back now, this kind of started when I've thought about, well, what would I be like as a parent? Because I'm not a parent yet. What would I be like as a parent if my child was like me when I was younger? What would I have done differently? And I demonstrated all the attributes to go down some sort of performing arts route, some sort of singing, dancing, acting, something like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm tone deaf now and I can't sing, but
mm.
I'm from a very working class northern household where that wouldn't have been allowed. My father wouldn't have allowed that. And I'm not saying I could have been a great actor or even a singer, but the point is, you, I should have been tried at that because I demonstrated the attributes that I might enjoy that.
Mm. So, in other words, you're saying, if I can summarize what you said there, parents need to pay attention to the interest of their children. That's one thing I got. And the other thing I also got is children would need to try different activities, passion, extracurricular activities, which means that it is still going to need a lot of involvement of the parents because they're the ones who are going to sign them up for all these extracurricular activities because there's no way these children can fail forward. For instance, they can't go into property at that age. So it would be mainly the extracurricular activities that they get signed up for that they would be able to maybe start to see, oh, I like that, or I don't like that.
Yes, exactly. And if your child, I understand some parents have this idea in their head that I want my child to be X, I want them to do X. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but what I'm saying is listen to them. Just because they're kind of adolescent, you think that they haven't got an opinion. They have, and listen to them and really lean into that. I'll give you an example of Rio Ferdinand, one of the greatest footballers, defenders in English football history. He used to do ballet. You would never associate a child from North London, I think he was from, or South London, in a really working class family to do ballet, but his
Mm.
parents allowed him to go to do ballet, and that he's even admitted that helped him in his football career because obviously there's certain attributes you need to be nimble on your feet, and he admitted that helped him in his later career. So you don't know what allowing your child to do now is actually going to help them with further down the line. It is probably what I'd say.
Hmm. Wow, that's powerful. So even though they might get into something that they really do enjoy, it might not be the final destination for them, but it might definitely propel them and actually be a catalyst to what they're going to eventually do. This I've I've totally agreed with everything you've said, Ryan. Every single one thing you've said, except for where you said there's no wrong or right answer in terms of parents dictating what their child does. I don't think parents should dictate what career path their child should choose. However, I still understand as a parent, we probably want to um we always feel like we have to guide our children and let them be on the right position, and maybe they need to do this and they need to do that. But if anything, I think what parents should do is put many options in front of their children, many good options. Obviously, you're not going to say, oh, one of the options is going to be to be a drug dealer, for instance. So put the good options in front of them and let them have that decision power. Let them be able to decide what route they want to go. Because I have a lot of um African parents who work with us, and I know that is something that is quite common in I wouldn't say in a lot, in most, but I know that, for instance, I'll use myself as an example. So at the time that I was a teenager, it was all about computers just saying out and stuff like that. My dad was just so crazy about this computer thing, and he didn't have the skills, but he thought, you know what, my daughter's got this opportunity and she can take on computing, not actually thinking about, is this actually what she wants to do? And I did go into uni, I did go and study computing, but not because I wanted to, just because my dad wanted me to. Eventually, I came out of that career and then pursued teaching, which was actually my God-given talent. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So I don't think parents should decide for their kids what career they should choose. Instead, they should put the options in front of them. They should give those children as many opportunities as much as possible for them to be able to then decide what route they're going to follow. The other thing I would come in as a teacher, where my own teacher perspective will come in, is I would say the children still need some basic qualifications. So at the end of the day, whatever career the child's going to go to, they still need to be able to read. They still need their basic maths. So I would say the children should work towards getting at least their GCSE qualifications. If they can go to college, do that. Have just those basic qualifications, so that if either they're going to property, they're going to their running their own businesses, they would have some form of certain, as at least a basic level understanding of what they're doing. I know a friend who is into construction and who struggled, didn't get any qualifications, but now doing construction work. And he admitted that, he did struggle running his own business because he didn't have those basic skills, and his mom didn't encourage him to do well in school. So that would be my only advice for parents who are listening. But I will bring you back to what you said about children changing their mind. My daughter said she wants to be a fashionista. She's been saying that since she was 4 years of age, but now she's changed it 6 years down the line. She says she wants to go into law. So how do we help children navigate all those changes when they change their mind, when they say, I want to do this, oh, I don't want to do that anymore, but I want to do this? How do we help them? How do we support them? How do we guide them so we make sure they're ultimately making the right decision for themselves?
No, it's a really good question. And I guess the 2 points that I'd say to that is, but the first thing is, yes, I'm an advocate of failing things and failing things fast. But what I also think is important is a level of discipline within that. And even if you say, okay, yes, we'll do this and we'll do it together as a team, because that's what we are as a family. But I need you to make me a promise that you're going to do it for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, so you can kind of get through those teething issues. Because I'm sure nobody enjoys, sometimes you don't enjoy the first time you do something because you're not good at it. So I'd probably, that's the first thing I'd probably say. Just have a level of discipline. Although I'm a huge advocate of trying things and moving on it quickly, in terms of discipline for a young child, and that goes back to the school thing as well. I wrote down when you was talking about school that I totally agree that getting some sort of minimum qualification is definitely encouraged. I have a friend exactly the same as what you said. He now works on a construction site, and he wasn't great at maths, and he said to me, I could really have done with understanding maths more when I was in school, because I didn't actually realize how much it was going to help me, because he does, all sorts of angles with his job and stuff. And yes, and I guess the other point to what you've said is, there may be some things that your student, your child wants to do that you don't even understand yourself. And that's fine, especially in an age where technology moves really, really fast. I mean, even I'm 31, and even I sometimes like, God, I'm getting old because I can see how good they are on tablets and stuff. And sometimes, even if you don't understand what the child is doing, for me, it's about saying, yeah, okay, you know what? I don't know what this is, but we're going to work through it together. We're going to do this together as a team, and I'm going to support you throughout. And I go back to my own childhood. I was always into business. I always loved business. But again, coming from a working class family, I didn't have a business mentor in my household. So I started a couple of businesses when I was young that never really went anywhere. Like, for example, I bought some stock on a market, sold it on eBay. And what I actually should have done is reinvest that back into new stock. And instead I went out drinking, or I went out doing whatever. And I could have really done with my mum or my dad to sit there with me at that time and go, that's fantastic, you've done that. Look at this money you've made. Now, how's about we split this? You've made £250. Keep £50 for yourself. Well done. Go and spend that on whatever you want. But the £200 plus the money that you'd already invested, let's buy more stock with it and let's do this again. And that is from my own personal journey. And like I say, I'm coming from first-hand experience where I really could have done with my mum or my dad to come to me and say, you know what? Yeah, but let's do this together. I can hold your hand throughout this journey, because I think that is super important. Even if you don't even understand the subject matter, to be able to support your child throughout that journey is imperative, because they might come to you with a question. You don't know the question, but you know where to find the answer, and you can help them get through that.
Amazing. I really like that. Joining your kid, even if you don't understand where it is, just being there, supporting them and learning together. So I was going to ask you, how do kids then decide on their careers? Like, once, you've given all this, they've done all these extracurricular activities, they probably pick their options in year 8. Fast forward to completing their GCSEs, they've got their GCSE result. And so now they've got the option of, do I do apprenticeship? Do I go to college? Do I go to university? So how do they decide which route is best for them to take? And after you've answered that question, is that support available at schools in the UK?
So I think in terms of the second part of the question, I think it's more readily available than it was when I was younger. I speak to some careers advisors now that are much better than the ones that I had to deal with, that said you have to go down this route or this route, and they're your only two routes. So I think it is more readily available. I think something that can't be overlooked is your parents as a careers advisor. Just talk to them over lunch or in the car journey on the way to school, over tea, whatever it may be. I think for me, your parent is probably the best career advisor that you could have, because you know your child better than anybody. You understand what they're passionate about, and you can help guide them down a certain path. Sorry, what was the first part of your question again?
So how do they know which routes to take? Are they going to do apprenticeship? Are they going to go sixth form? Are they going to go down the line from sixth form to university? Or do you know what? This is the point where I check out and I go and get a job.
I mean, yeah, it's a tough one. It's not for me to say when you should and shouldn't be going down a certain route. However, I'm not a huge fan of when people say I'm going to university to do a subject that doesn't need to be going to university to do. If you're going to do computing, if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be a vet, fine, go and get a degree. But I'm not a huge fan of going and doing let's say, interior design. I have nothing against interior designers, but I feel like you could certainly learn more on the job than you could do going to university for 4 years. So I guess if you have an understanding of what you want to do, that's the first differentiator. Like, if I want to do something in construction, I know I don't need to go to university to do that, really, unless it's, I don't know, a quantity surveyor or something like that requires a degree to fundamentally do the job. And I guess something that also can't be overlooked is your learning style. I mean, I know straight away about me that I don't learn by list. How do I? So I'm a kinesthetic learner. So I learn by doing stuff, and I always have been. I'm always active. So my learning style isn't conducive to the education system. Going to university, sitting down, doing 2-hour exams. That's not how I'm going to excel most in life. So I guess getting an understanding of that of your child and helping your child understand that as well, because I probably didn't know that I was a kinesthetic learner when I was in school. So yeah, I guess they're probably the two things I'd suggest.
Thank you for that. And I also like to emphasize on research for parents and even the kids themselves. So the teenagers that I work with who want to know, sometimes some of them don't know exactly what they want to do. So the homework I would normally give them, which is what I say to some of my students that I talk to, is go and write down 5 different career routes that you think you have chances of going to do. Write them down, list them, and then work from top to bottom. So start by saying, okay, and kids, especially teenagers, they're always fascinated with money. So sometimes they go, oh, if he pays a lot of money, I want to do this job. Okay, so start from top down, list those careers, and then write down how much you would be earning if you were going to take those careers. Research, you can get all of this information on Google. And then once you got that, write down the job description for each one of those jobs. And then once you've got that, check what qualifications you're going to need to be able to get that job. Do you need to go to university? Do you need to do 2 years apprenticeship? Whatever it is you need to do, whatever qualification they're looking for. And that qualification, again, is top down. So are they looking for you to get a 2-1 at university level, get a bachelor's degree? And then if you then wanted to study that at university level, what 6th form subjects do you need to study to get into university, and what grades are they asking for? Then going down again, what GCSE grades do I need? And I said to them, by the time you finish this research for 5 of those jobs, 3 of them would have been knocked out already. By the time you finish the research, 2 or 3 of them would be knocked out, because you look at the job description, you look at the day-to-day of that job, and you go, no, I'm not doing that. I don't like that. There's no way. And so that's something I think would be useful to a lot of our teenagers when they start to think about what they want to do. And it's okay not knowing what you want to do, because even some adults still don't have that clarity. And I guess it's about having an open mind and actually thinking about it, because I believe in the universe dragging to you and bringing to you what you're focusing on, right? So if you have an open mind, I don't know what I want to do right now, but do you know what? I've got my thinking hat on, and I'm going to have an open mind about it. And maybe in the next 3 months, 6 months down the line, then you will, I'm talking about the children, you'll be able to gain that sort of clarity that you needed. So I was going to ask you, Ryan, what was your journey in how you got into the property? So I know you said you did a corporate. So at what point did you go, right, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going into property, and this is definitely what I want to do. What was that tipping point? What made you make that decision?
Yeah, sure. Just before I answer that, can I just touch on something you mentioned in the last point about sometimes you don't know what you want to do? And I remember, so I do public speaking now in schools, and if you would have told me when I was 17 that I'd be public speaking, I would have laughed at you, because I remember my first ever public speaking event or whatever it was. It was in college, and it was in a psychology lesson, and I was presenting about Sigmund Freud, and I bombed so hard. Like, the teacher told me to sit down because I was so bad. And I was sweating, I was anxious, and I never wanted to speak in front of people again. And I think that the key thing for me was I wasn't passionate about the subject matter. When I found something I was passionate about, I can stand in front of you all day and talk about property and myself because I understand that subject and I'm passionate about that subject. So, and something I also want to throw in the hat, and it's something that I've been thinking about recently. there's a lot of AI softwares out there, like your Chat GPT.
Mm.
You could even, as a stretch, as a student, type into there, these are all the things I'm passionate about. Please create me 10 careers that I could potentially do. And
Wow.
that's something that I've been thinking about recently that could help students. That could be something that the parents could do. I imagine the kids are quite au fait with AI softwares and stuff now, as they becoming more readily available. So that's a potential as well. Just writing in there, you can give it any prompts, tell it, I want you to tell me 100 things that I could do as a career, and here are all the things I'm passionate about. And it will give them you, and then you can work through your exercise, because that was a really good exercise I'd never thought of before.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Ryan. That's amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
cool.
Mm.
So going back to your question, how did I
Mhm.
get into it? How did I know?
Yeah, what was the
Um,
tipping point? When did you make that leap and how did you do it?
yeah, so it was during COVID, and the catalyst for me was I used to drive about 40 minutes to work and then 40 minutes home, and I used to listen to a radio station called Talk Sport, and it's just a sport radio station in the UK, and it used to talk about football. And I was driving in one day, and the pandemic had been going on for a few weeks now, and they weren't talking about anything. They were just talking about rubbish. Because what do you talk about on a sports broadcasting radio show when there's no sport on? It was
Mhm.
rubbish. And I just remember thinking, I can't keep wasting this time. I had an hour and a half every day that I could educate and learn. So I started listening to Amazon Audible. So I downloaded a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And that really opened my mind to investments, how I can leverage money and property. Um, and as I said, I'd always had this thing in the background of I wanted to do property. And then that was the thing that made me think, right, you know what, I'm really going to get educated in this. I'm really going to understand it. Because from the outside looking in, you think property development is buying and selling. You think, I buy a house, I do it up, and I sell it.
Mhm.
And that's not the case. There's so many ways in property you can make money, whether that be through management, whether that is being a middle person to find an investor and a property. So this person's got the property, this person's got the money, but hasn't got the time to find the property. You sit in the middle and put them together. And there's so many ways, and that's how it started really. And my first property I bought just after during the COVID pandemic in the first lockdown opening. I bought it for £59,000 using private investor finance. So I asked a family member for a loan. They were nice enough to give me the loan on a fixed return basis. So I had to give him his money back plus interest on top of it. And yeah, we renovated it. We turned it into a property where we housed refugees and asylum seekers. And then we sold that property as a turnkey asset to somebody else based in Dubai, I believe they were.
Mm. Amazing. Amazing. How did that feel, that first project? Because it could have gone wrong. We were talking about failing forward. So how did that feel, your very first project being very successful?
Well, before we say it's very successful, there were certainly some failures within the project on the way.
Mm.
There were some headaches, there were some lessons learned, definitely. So I just probably shouldn't have brushed over that like I did. There was so many errors that I made, so many mistakes, and we actually did something else with it first before we then did what we ended up doing with it. So I wasted a bit of money in between. But yeah, it was a fantastic feeling for me. Not just the monetary aspect that came from that, which was great. For me, it was being able to help other people that are in great need of it. And that's my primary property strategy now. I develop properties for supported living and social housing. So that can be homelessness, that can be asylum seekers and refugees, that can be children coming out of the care system at 16, and they've got nowhere to go. So they go into one of these properties that we've developed. And for me, it's not just about the monetary aspect. For me, it's about having a purpose in life, and
Mm.
my purpose is to try and help those people that haven't got the best situation in life. That inspires me to keep going on the hard days, really.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's a huge purpose. And it's so way beyond just the monetary aspects. You've how and it's so interesting how you discovered your purpose as well. It didn't just land on your laps. You didn't just know exactly. Well, you knew you wanted to go into property, but you didn't actually know the actual purpose until all of these steps you then get in there and being open-minded as well. Thank you for sharing that, Ryan. So any other advice that you would give to parents watching now and students watching now, something we haven't touched up on that you think is really crucial for parents and the kids to know in terms of making the decision about their careers?
Yeah, there is something that is probably worth touching on, and it's a couple of things. It's you mentioned before about you joked about the whole drug dealer situation. I'm not naive to think that every parent on this call is going to have a child that is not going to get in trouble with the wrong side of the law at some point, or they might have certain disadvantages. They might have learning difficulties. They might have ADHD. They might have a numerous amount of things, and it's about using that as their superpower and not disregarding it. And what I'd say is, for example, there's a ridiculous stat. It's one of my favorite stats ever that 10% of the world's population is dyslexic, but 40% of the world's self-made millionaires are dyslexic. Now, why is that so disproportionate? For me, it's because people who aren't great with letters tend to lean into numbers a little bit more. And if you're good with numbers, you're great at business. So it's about reframing whatever that perceived disadvantage is and putting them in the right situation to give them the best chance in life. I don't believe in strengths and weaknesses. I only believe in strengths.
Wow.
But you just need to put your child in a situation where their strengths are at their most powerful. And the example I will give you is if you was an Olympic swimmer and I put you on a football field and said, go and play a professional game of football, you're going to look like a failure. But if I put you in a swimming pool, you're going to look like a world champion. Nothing's changed. You haven't changed. Your circumstances and your situation that you're in has changed. So I'd say it's about supporting your child and reframing any negative connotations or anything like that into positives and put them in the situations that will help them best moving forward.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Ryan. I love it. Love it. Anything else?
No, I think that's the main, the main one that we hadn't spoke about was that really. It's a lot of the stuff that I talk about when I go and speak to schools. It's because I tend to get put with the perceived naughty class, and I hate that word naughty class. They're not naughty. They're perhaps misunderstood, or you're a product of your environment, right? You don't know what's going on at home for these students. They might come from a really disadvantaged household with, I don't know, abusive parents or whatever. You can't just treat them as naughty. And so I end up getting put with these naughty classes a little bit more, and being able to help them understand that there's other avenues in life and not just the career route. I spoke to someone the other week that I went to school with, and he was never in school, but now he runs one of the largest fencing companies in my area. He's actually got like franchises around. And he basically said, I didn't like school. All I wanted to do was build fences all day, which it might sound ridiculous when you're in school, but this guy's turned it into an incredible business. So,
wow. Amazing. So I guess the responsibility and the onus is on all of us, the parents, the teachers, the adults around the children, listening to them, encouraging them. And also, when I say listen to them, you said a long time ago you wanted to go into property. This guy who you're just talking about, said he wanted to do fencing. Listening to them, and where possible, giving them the tools that they need to be able to, make progress in whatever area. So whatever it is we do, we've got to be careful with our words, not put them down like one of your teachers did, even though, which is quite interesting, sometimes the negativity that you get might be the propellant to you actually going, you know what, I'm going to show them that I can do this. But not every children can do that. Sometimes our words, if we're not careful, might discourage that child from actually achieving their potential. So I know you go into schools, Ryan, and you help kids who are tagged naughty. You help kids across the board. So parents who are listening to you today and would like you maybe to work with their child, or is it only schools you work with, or do you work with individual kids as well?
No, so I can work on an individual basis as well. So we can offer one-on-one business mentoring if that's what the child wants to do. One-on-one property mentoring. And I also offer a 50-minute discovery call with a parent and or student, just to have kind of a relaxed conversation similar to this, where they can ask questions and kind of get an insight into how their student can choose a career as best as possible, really.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And where can people find you? We're gonna tag you on when we put this out. We're definitely gonna tag you. But if you can tell us now where people can find you for people who are listening right now.
Yeah, sure. So I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. I try to share all of my journey on Instagram, whether that be good, bad, or indifferent, because I think there's too many people on Instagram that share all the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris, and they don't share the mess ups. So I'm on Instagram at RMT Property. So that's Romeo Mike Tango Property. And then I'm on LinkedIn as Ryan Taylor.
Amazing. Thank you, Ryan. So to round this up, I'm going to ask you one last final question. What would you say to your 13-year-old, 15-year-old self? What would you say to that child right now?
I would say, don't listen to them. Follow your passion and do what you want to do, because that will make you happy in life.
Wow.
I wish I would have done what I did at 28, at 18, because I would have been a millionaire at 21. And I wish that I was, obviously. That would be a great position to be in. And I think the best piece of advice I ever got, I say I've received the advice. I do a lot of podcasts and books, but the best piece of advice that I ever heard was from a business person in the UK. He's the owner of Gymshark, called Ben Francis.
Okay.
Gymshark's one of the largest brands in the world now, never mind the UK. And he basically said, we're all winging it. Nobody knows what they're doing in life. Children think that parents have got it all sorted, and the truth is we haven't. So just follow your passion, even if it's not what other people think you should be doing. If you're absolutely convinced that it's the right thing to do, then do it.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And my own final words also would be to parents to say it's really important that we don't leave our lives through our children, like, our unfulfilled passions, our unfulfilled purpose. Sometimes parents tend to want to leave it through their children. And so it's really important that we understand that these children are unique, separate individuals from us, right? Yes, we're their parents, but we don't own them. They're their own person, and they need to be able to decide on what they want to do, give them that autonomy to be able to decide. I want to say thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us today. You are super amazing. I'm looking forward to doing much work with you later on. I'm really inspired by how you've turned yourself around, how you've become a fantastic and successful business person. And so thank you so much for taking your time to come on today. And I look forward to speaking with you more in the nearest future.
No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye, Ryan. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good evening.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.